This session is going to cover working with customers on projects. My name's Mandy. I work with our onboarding team for Zoho CRM. So this session is going to be showing you guys mostly the kind of interworkings or the getting started with Zoho projects. And so we're going to talk along the way about how you can use Zoho projects to kind of move your projects or your jobs along, and then how you can also keep your customers kind of up to date. So you're going to be able to share along the way the status of the project and how things are going, and they'll be able to log in and kind of see what's going on every step of the way. Okay? So I got a couple of quotes just to kind of get this started. And so this first one is from Walt Disney. And it's basically saying, of all the things that I've done, the most vital is coordinating the talents of those who work for us and pointing them towards a certain goal, right? And so this is basically just kind of saying the same thing that like a project or that Zoho projects we're going to show you, it's covering that. So it's basically taking an end goal, which is going to be completing a project or delivering a job, and then finding or identifying your different users, their different skill set, assigning the different tasks that kind of feed into the project along the way until you guys can kind of finish that project out. All right, but something else we want to kind of take a look at, like this whole track is centered around customer support, right? And so we want to really drive home this idea that supporting your customers and being as transparent as you can with them is important. So this is talking about how the single most important ingredient in the recipe for success is transparency, because transparency builds trust. And this is so true. At a company of some kind, and they just keep you updated. They kind of annoy you a little bit with updates about anything and everything along the way. But you do feel like it's good, right? Because you know what's going on. There's never going to be an outage that you don't know about. There's never going to be a problem that they didn't update you on or a security issue. They're always doing their best to kind of be transparent and keep you updated. And so that helps build trust. Conversely, also, when you don't do these things, it can actually make your customers distrust you. So if along the way you were to have some sort of security breach or some issue go wrong and nobody updates you and you find out about it maybe when everybody's blasting them on Twitter, then that definitely makes you feel like, why didn't anybody update me and let me know what was happening? Okay? And so that just kind of wants, the main kind of reason that I'm bringing this up is just this idea that like, being transparent with your customers and keeping them informed helps not only to make them trust you, but to prevent them from distrusting you, which is really important. Okay? So when it comes to any sort of traditional project management structure, what you're really doing is very much like what Walt Disney said. You're going to be directing your resources toward a known goal. So a lot of times we use this classic example of building a house. And I think this is because a lot of contractors use project management, and we have a lot of contractors on Zoho projects. So basically, if the house is the goal or the project, then your different resources are going to be doing tasks or completing tasks, and you're going to be assigning tasks to them to help kind of complete that. So laying the bricks and painting and sawing things, I think. I'm not sure what that little bubble is for. But all of these kind of are going to be fitting into your project. Okay? So this is what your project structure looks like. So at the top, you have level 1, and that's going to be your project. Now, actually, there's going to be one little level above this that may or may not be applicable to everyone in here, but it's going to be the portal. So you can actually create a portal that's entirely for maybe just a particular department, or if you're managing different companies within your account, you want to be able to kind of keep everything completely separate, you can make a portal for each one of them. But traditionally, if it's just you, you're going to have your project at the top. So that's the job or the deliverable, the main deliverable that you're working on. And then level 2 is going to be your different milestones. So those are going to be the kind of key components that need to be completed for the project to move along. But each milestone is going to have its own set of tasks associated with it. Now we have level 3 here for task lists, and that basically is just going to be a way to group your different tasks together. So if you've got like 100 tasks, it's helpful to kind of be able to segment and say like, okay, these are all related to marketing. These are all related to social media, whatever you need to. All right, and then it's important to also note on level 4, the different tasks that you have, that there can be dependencies between them. So a lot of times maybe you can't start task 2 until task 1 has been completed, right? So we'll see in this next slide, we're just going to show you the example of that building a house. So build a house is level 1, that's going to be your project. And then level 2, your milestone, one of those would be laying the bricks where they're needed. And so then level 3 is your different tasks that are associated to that. And so it's going to be the, buying the bricks, buying the cement, mixing the cement, constructing your chimney. Obviously, you can't mix the cement until you've bought the cement. So task of buying the cement the task of mixing the cement is actually relying on that other task being completed. So you'll see how you've got that connection between the two. And just to give you another example, this is a little bit more of a hectic structure, but this is internal. This is a project that we actually utilize for Zoholics 2018. So you'll see at the top we have our portal for our events, and we have so many portals you would not even believe it inside Zoho. We have tons of them. But we have an events portal, and then every time we do different events like this, we have different project for each one. And so this project would be Zoholics 2018. And then off of that, you've got your different milestones. So we have, and these are just a snapshot, there's a lot more, but you see audience analysis, event promotion, logistics. Logistics could literally be its own project, I feel like. There's so many pieces that go into logistics. But in this sense, we're kind of breaking down further to show you the event promotion. So you'll see where you've got task lists broken out for marketing and social media. And then on the marketing side, we've got blog content, we've got printing promotional banners, we've got creating videos, and then you have an idea of subtasks that lead off of that. So when it comes to your blog content, creating a rough draft, reviewing those rough drafts, you can see how you could really get very granular. On this is internal, right? So you can create different types of projects. Ideally, we're talking about ones that you're using to support your customers. So it's going to be a customer-facing project. It's going to be something most likely that they've bought from you and you need to deliver to them. So there's all these pieces that need to happen before they're going to be satisfied. But you can also use it internally as well. You can use it for something like this or for maybe development that you're working on, things like that. Okay? So before we kind of dive into a demo of Zoho projects, we want to talk a little bit about how the traditional project management structure is changing. And it's changing mostly in these 3 categories. So it's changing with the people, the work, and the organizations. And what I mean by that is people wear a lot more hats. So in your traditional project management structure, usually you had somebody at the top that was kind of commanding orders down to everybody else. And each person maybe had like one thing that they did. And they did it really well, but they never really cared to learn more or did more outside of that. And sometimes, especially if you're a very small company, you might be wearing like every hat. You're doing a little bit of everything. And that's partially because, you need kind of all hands on deck, but it's also because people have an interest in that. They don't want to just do the same thing over and over again. They'll get bored. They want to like try and do different things, and they want to be more well-rounded and kind of venture into different aspects of the business. And so because of that, your projects are going to change too, right? It's going to affect the way that you assign tasks to people because you want to be able to kind of put the best people, your best resources in the right places, but you also want to kind of distribute so they're not always doing the same thing. They're going to be doing a little bit of different stuff. People are also way more self-managed. In the past, again, there's one person kind of barking down orders, and because of that, there was always one person that really, more or less probably was really like a micromanager. They just always were kind of following up with them and seeing what they were doing. And now you have a lot more freedom. A lot of people have the freedom to kind of do their own thing. One thing I have learned that this is problematic for at least working on different projects when it comes to like making sure that if you're working on a timeline or a deadline is that a lot of managers, they don't want to be a micromanager, but they kind of do want to be a micromanager. I think everybody's like that. So something like this is helpful because I don't have to do that. It kind of does it for me, right? It's going to say like, hey, you have X, Y, and Z to do. You have a deadline. It's going to remind them over and over. And then I have a way to be like, this wasn't taken care of, and I have the project material to prove it. All right, so also your millennials are entering management. And the main thing that I'm pointing this out for here is just to kind of show that a lot of the people that are in the management position now have grown up with the internet or are very comfortable with the internet. So the main thing is here, project management has evolved in that sense too. Everybody wants everything to be online. They want to, as much as they can, be able to access it and access it from the cloud. All right. So also the work is changing. Not only the people are changing, but the work is changing. Things are definitely not as rigid or as structured as they were before, in the sense of you would have a project. This is how it is, and it's going to be like this every single time. Now, the good thing is if you have a lot of the same projects over and over again and they really don't change, you do have an option inside Zoho Projects, and I'm going to show you guys. You can create a project template, and you'll be able to apply that to any new projects you create. It's really helpful if you're really lucky and you have a lot of projects that stay the same and you're just repeating it over and over for customers, then that's great. You have that option. But a lot of times it's not that easy, right? It's very dynamic. And it's because we allow customers to customize things as much as they want. We want to give them a lot of choices. So every project can end up being different. And it can end up being a complete chaotic mess sometimes. And you don't really know until you get started with the planning of it. You identify, okay, these are the things that we need to do. And we want to set the task list and we want to set these due dates. It's just going to be dynamic each time, right? So they're not completely planned from the beginning anymore. They're also complex. So just like leading off of that, the complexity that comes along with that, with allowing them all of that freedom and customization to kind of make their changes that they want. They're very complex. And there's also a lot more regulations now, right? You never know when you're going to be doing something that you have to think about all of the different legal issues that might be included. So you want to make sure that you're always staying on top of that stuff. And the work is also more distributed. So just like we were talking about before, one person's not just doing one thing. They're wearing many hats, and the work is kind of going to be distributed amongst a lot of different people. And then finally, your organizations are changing, right? They're becoming flatter. There's not that idea of the guy at the top barking orders down quite as much anymore. They're actually collaborating, and they're asking questions, and they're working with the people below them in their role hierarchy. Internally in Zoho, this is a huge thing. This is part of our company culture, is that anybody, no matter how long they've been with the company, can actually help come up with new feature requests, or they can actually help us decide what we're going to do next. So everybody can kind of come in, say, hey, I have this idea, and if it's good and if it's something we can do, it might be implemented in the next rollout. So yeah, it's much more informal, and this is also something that kind of carries over into your work as well. Like you see the same kind of culture applied to the different workloads. And then finally, the organizations are actually working a lot more closely with external parties. So kind of going off of what we were talking about earlier, the customer has a lot more say. They have much bigger voice now. They have a lot more say in how the project forms out and what happens and what kind of customizations are involved. And so then the final thing that we want to kind of just talk about the way that things are changing is related to this idea of everything wanting to look more like you see on social media. Right? So there's a reason that Facebook and Twitter kind of have a similar flow in the sense that you scroll through your data stream and you see what the most recent updates are, who's liking what, things like that. They're similar because that's what people like. They like seeing data organized in there. They like seeing the updates organized in that way. And so that's something that we've taken in mind as well when we've been making updates and changes to Zoho projects, and we've added that kind of component in too. It's also, work is much more collaborative now. So kind of touching off what we were discussing about your boss really looking to people lower in the hierarchy to kind of get ideas, and people kind of discussing projects and things like that more as they flesh them out. It's much more collaborative now. It's not just one person makes all the decisions. It's actually a group effort. And then obviously everybody wants to be mobile. Everybody wants to be able to get an update all the time, even if they're like in the middle of eating dinner. They want to be able to get an update right then and know that somebody in their team completed a task, or they want to see how far along a milestone is. You just want that. It's convenient. We want to be able to see right away in real time without having to be tethered to a desktop. Okay? So all of these things have kind of come into how Zoho Projects has been formulated. We've taken all of these ideas and all of these ways that project management's changing, and it's all kind of flowed in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a very simple kind of walkthrough of getting started with Zoho projects, like the basics. So we're going to walk through creating a project and creating milestone and a task associated with that, just so you can guys see like how simple that process really is. And then we're going to switch over into an existing project that we have that's got a lot more data in it, so we can kind of show and showcase some of these features. This is my homepage inside Zoho Projects. So if you have a lot of different projects in your account, then your homepage is going to be a really good kind of overview of all the different projects. So you're going to be able to come in here. You can obviously customize this and drag and drop things as you want, move it around a little bit. You can change what's on here as well. Within a specific project, which is most likely what you'll really care about, you can click on this Projects tab, and then you'll be able to see kind of an overview of the projects that you have. So when you're ready to create a brand new project, you'll just come in here and you'll click on this New Project option up in the top right corner. And so just going off the example that we had in the slide earlier for building a house, I'm sure a contractor would not call the project Build a House, but for the purpose of this demo, we'll do that. And so you'll see where you can select from an existing template. You would be able to apply that. So like we talked about, if you are one of those lucky few that it's going to be very similar each time, maybe you only need a little bit of changes, you'd be able to select from an existing template. If it's that dynamic, crazy, chaotic mess that probably what most of you see, then you could just leave this as none and you can build it out from scratch each time if you need to. All right? So you're able to select who's going to be the owner of the project. And then you're able to set your start date and end date. So I don't actually know how long it takes to build a house, but I'm going to be really optimistic. I'm going to say it takes a few months. So we'll set this to start the beginning of this year, and we'll just have it ending maybe this month. All right. So here, right here is this option where you can make this a strict project. So the only thing that this is just for is just letting you know that if you select this, you won't be able to create any milestones or tasks that fall outside of the project deadline. So we can leave this off because we know that things might change. You can fill out your project overview if you need to. If you had a proposal to actually win the project in the first place, you might just want to copy that and paste it in here. And all these fields are going to be specific to the different kind of pieces of the project. You can add custom fields in here. You can change up how it's grouped. If you've got lots of different projects of different types, you can kind of create, marketing projects and event projects, things like that. And you'd be able to select those if you need to. Now, what's really going to be important is if you're going to be billing this project. So if it's a project that you're creating and you plan to actually bill the customer for number of hours that went into it, or if you have a budget for the project and you want to log expenses and track your invoices and things like that, then you'd want to make sure that you can set that on here. So a lot of times the billing method, if it's going to be based on hours logged, you want to do this based on your staff availability. And then we're going to look at some really cool reporting in here that's going to show you resource allocation. So you'll be able to see who's available when, and you can assign tasks to them that way. And you can set a project budget. We can make it based on a specific amount, which we'll just say 100,000. And then you can set this. We want this to be a billable project. And any of the other custom fields that you want to add in here. These are just going to be specific, and you can customize this as you want to. Down below, right here where it says Project Access, it's just going to give you two options. This is either private, which means only your project users are going to be able to access the project, or it's public, which means all of your portal users can view and follow it. So this is important to note. If you add a lot of client users into your project portal, then that would make they would suddenly have access to this project. You may not want that, right? So you just want to set this to private unless you're not adding a lot of that in there and it's everybody that's in that portal, it's okay for them to access. Okay? So that's the basic for just creating the project itself. But once you've got the project created, you want to add the different flavors into it, right? So as you see, we've now got all these kind of empty dashboards on here. You remember when we're on the home page, it populates everything from your different projects. When you're in a project specifically, it's going to be the same data, or the same dashboards, it's just specific to that one project. So when we're ready to create our milestones, we can just come over here into this milestones option over on the left, and we can create a new milestone. And so I think one of the milestones that we had in there was lay bricks. All right, and then we can set the start date and the end date for that particular milestone. And so we'll set this to be maybe the beginning of the project, March 1st to maybe like the end of that first month. Okay, and then you can tell who is responsible. So you're able to select from your users list. I can set this to be myself. And then you can flag this as either internal or external. And this is important here because if it's internal, then this is just going to be something that your employees and your contractors, people who have access to the projects portal for the purpose of completing tasks and moving the project along. But if you make it external, that's when your client users are going to be able to see the status too. So like we talked about before, the importance of being transparent, letting your clients know what's going on along the way. I'll show you in a second where you can add users into the system and you can add your client users, but this is key to know. If you don't select external here, then the milestone won't be visible to them, which means the tasks won't be visible. If that's what you want them to be able to see that, you definitely want to select external. But maybe this is something that they don't necessarily need to see. It's more of an internal piece to the project. That's when you would want to make this as internal. Okay. So as soon as you create a milestone, it'll immediately bring up the task list option. So you can go in and you can go ahead and create a task list. So we know we are wanting to lay the bricks. We'll just make a task list for bricks. And then we can create our tasks off of that. So once we come into this task tab, we see our task list that we've created, and we can just add out the tasks from there. And when we click on our little project or our little task detail here, here's where we can select all of the specifics related to this particular task. So we have a milestone that's due within a month frame. Maybe we've got a few tasks that need to fit within that milestone frame, right? So we've got task 1. We want that to be completed within the first week. So we can say that that's due during this time frame. Okay. And what's really important is if this is something that you want to actually set your billable time for, if this is something that you know you're going to be invoicing on as part of your project, you want to make sure that you select this option for set work. So when you assign somebody to this particular task, I'm going to set this to be Fayez. I can set the work on this, and then I can set either work hours per day, I can set it as a percentage of the day, or I can just say general work hours overall. And this allows for the flexibility, right? So if maybe Fayez wants to not work it on Monday, but work on it on Tuesday, this would give him a little bit of flexibility. Or if you're saying, I want him working on this every single day, I don't care what he wants to do, then you could select this here. Since this is part of buying bricks, this probably isn't something he needs to spend so many hours on every day. So we'll just set this to work hours, and maybe we'll just set this to 3. So you'll see how you can kind of flesh this out. Now, this is important to note that this is kind of, we're showing you the pieces of creating the milestones and the task lists and the tasks, but it definitely doesn't have to be this laid out. If you just have a project and you have tasks as part of that project and you want a way to help yourself stay on top of it, if it's just you as one user or several people and those different tasks are their responsibility, you can do that. It can just be a project with tasks. But probably as things move along, as your projects get more defined, that's when you'll want to build out milestones with task lists and tasks and everything kind of built into that. I just wanted to create this new project to kind of show you guys how that looks, how to build one basically from the top down, which is what I usually recommend. Once you've already created a project, you can definitely along the way go into it. You'll be able to see, things come up along the way that you can't control, or you're still kind of building it out as you go along, and you'll be able to add tasks in here and there. But yeah, so I wanted to just kind of show you guys how that looks. But now we're going to hop over into an existing project that we have that's got lots of data in it so that it's a little bit more visual and you guys can kind of get an idea of what all's in here. So we come in here into this projects tab, and this is going to show me a listing of all of the different projects that I have. And right now I've got them, I'm viewing them by group, but I can also change this. I can say view by client, and it'll show me all of the projects broken down by client, or I can set it to view by owner as well. So I can see each individual person, their projects that they're responsible for. So a lot of times I like to say view by group. And then once you're in that, you can also see this overview here. Just like almost everything in Zoho, it's going to be customizable here. So you can click on this. You can change the columns that show up here. So if you don't necessarily care about certain data points, you'd be able to get this minimized down to just what you need to see. And this will just give you a quick overview of all of your projects broken out by group. So it'll show you who's in charge of it, the percentage completed that it is overall, where your milestones are at, your dates, things like that. So I'm going to go into an existing project that I have here. And when you go into it, just like we were looking at before, it's going to bring up your homepage dashboard of all of the different pieces, what's going on with this project. So this is good for giving you a really good snapshot view of how your project is performing right now. And you can come in here and you can customize it. You can take out the stuff that's not important to you so that it's not cluttering up the space as much as you want. And then you can drag and drop as you want as well. So this way what you're seeing is just the stuff you need to. We talked earlier, we walked through the milestones, but I just want to see, once you have more milestones added in there, this is what it would look like. You come into your milestone listing, and it's going to have them all grouped out here, and you can see an overview of the status and any issues that are logged, things like that. Same way with your tasks. Now, tasks inside a project are usually where I find most people live at. They're mostly coming into this. They're looking at an overview to see all of the tasks. They're usually looking at this all open view, but maybe they want to look at specific my open or things that haven't been taken care of yet, things like that. But what's really great about this task view is you can look at it as a classic view here. So it's grouped out by milestone automatically. Or you can change it to the plain view if you want, which just kind of takes that grouping component out and lists them all. Some people like this. I do not. I like it to be a lot more organized. I like summary reports in the CRM and things like that too. I just want to be able to kind of see fleshed out the right way. But if you just want your task list, this is good. I would say this is helpful if you're doing a lot of projects that only have a couple of tasks as part of them, then this might be helpful. But we also have this Kanban view as well. So this gives you a way to kind of view the different tasks that you have across a project. And you can view them out by status, or you can view them out by the task list that they're in, or the priority. I think the priority one is probably one of the best ones here because it makes sense that you would be able to easily see this, identify a task that maybe was low priority at some point, and you can drag it over into high priority easily within this Kanban view. So I think this is a really great view for that because it allows you, without having to go into the task and locate it and then edit it and change the priority, you can actually just drag and drop right in here. So it makes it really easy to work with. If you want to add users into your project or into your portal, you'll just come into this little section down here for users, or you can click on this little wrench icon up in the top right corner, and you'll see an option in here for manage users. So if you're adding portal users, so you're just coming in here, you click on add user, and then you'd be able to select the projects that you want them to be a part of. So maybe you don't want them to work on all of your projects, but you do want them to be a part of specific ones. You can select those, push them over, and you just add their email address and you select their user role. So by default, admin and manager, they're going to have full access to kind of create and make changes to projects, things like that. Employees and contractors are going to be like your workhorses. And then you can set their rate per hour. So you've got their work hours, it's by default going to be set to 40, but you can change that. You can set their rate per hour, and this is really important for the invoicing aspect. So if you're going to be billing for a project. So once we create a user, I'm just going to leave it right here, you'll see that user will be added in here. Now they're going to get an email invitation to join into your project's account. They just want to make sure to click on that link and then they'll be able to join in. If they don't have any sort of Zoho account at all, that's the point where it's going to say, hey, do you want to create a password? They'll create that and then they'll get joined in. If they already have Zoho CRM or something else, it's just a confirmation at that point. Okay.
All right, let's give it up for Mandy, everyone.